Hey everyone, welcome to Photomotion Glacier. More specifically, welcome to your first animation in Photomotion Glacier. I'm so excited to see you here, and although Photomotion does require a little bit of learning at the beginning, I'm pretty sure you will absolutely love it. I'll leave you with Jack and David, who will be your teachers. I found the best way is to follow along and animate together, so feel free to pause this video at any point or rewind it back if you missed something. Alright, off we go to animate. Take it away, Jack.
Hey, what's going on there, guys? In this video, we're going to be showing you our projection system Glacier. First things first, we've downloaded and extracted this zip file onto our desktop, so let's jump into this folder over here. From there, we'll want to access the Glacier project folder by first accessing the projection folder just over here. We'll see all of these different types of projections: depth, portrait, horizon, parallax, mirage, and finally, of course, Glacier, which is the folder, of course, that we want to access. From there, we'll double click on this Glacier project file and then give After Effects a minute or two if it needs. Two quick notes. First off, Photomotion is a project-based toolkit, so no need to fiddle about with scripts or extensions. Everything that you need is right here within the project, and because it's a viewport-based application, most of the work is done within the viewport and of course effect controls. So in saying that, let's just click on this Start Glacier button over here. Once we're in the main dashboard, we'll notice that we're pretty stark in terms of options here. Not to worry, this is intentional. It's a safeguard in order to stop us from shooting ourselves in the foot and jump the gun ever so slightly. It's also a helpful guide in order to help us get started with the workflow. So nothing that we can really do here, but just get access into this Add Video composition by double clicking the Add Video button and then Add Video again when we get to the next screen. Once we're inside, we'll go to File, then Import, and then finally File, which will open this File Explorer window just over here. We'll want to find this video, clicking on it, and then selecting Import, which will bring it into our Project window tab just over here. We'll then bring that video down into this composition, and you'll notice there's no parenting options unlike our other projections. That's because Glacier doesn't work with layers or depth maps or anything else like that for that matter. It's kind of different like that. The next step will be to bring our needle to the point that we want our video to loop by. Within this example, we want our loops to be about 100 frames. Once our needle is on this mark, we'll bring our mouse to the very end of this layer and then drag it down. If we really want to, we can snap it into position with our needle by just holding Shift. Once done, we'll jump to the composition above, Add Video Comp, the one that we were in just 2 seconds ago, and scan around for the right point where we want our video to hold. This looks good, the 49 frame point. So to change the freeze time code, we can just drag this marker over here to where we want that freeze to happen. Now, this part of our video will act as our freeze point. Okay, so back into the main dashboard, we're then going to look at drawing our mask here. We can do so by just double clicking on the button over here, gaining access to this composition. We can import a mask from an external application, but for this example, we're just going to draw it within After Effects, so we're really only interested in this draw button. We're going to make sure beforehand that our playhead is at the very beginning of our composition. Right, so after we've double clicked on this draw here, we're going to start masking out this sky by drawing the mask along the point of the trees that disappear into the horizon. Try and be as precise as possible, especially within the foreground, as it can look quite obvious if our mask isn't up to scratch. There are of course shortcuts. As we progress onto the background, we can be a little bit more relaxed, as it's not going to be as obvious over there, especially within this example. So once completed, our frame should look a little bit like this, which is fine. We'll then go back to the main dashboard and continue our animation process, but before we do anything else, just make sure to swap out the pen tool for the selection tool. So as you can see here, all of our options have opened up within the dashboard, and if we preview the animation, we can see that these clouds here subtly transition from one loop to another, kind of soothing really. But what if we wanted a different effect, something a little bit more eye-catching initially? Well, we could use something like boomerang. So let's just go to animation over here and then navigate over to effect controls. Once inside there, we can enable this checkbox called boomerang, and what that will do is remove this transition and replace it with this loop animation. We'll animate in and then reverse it out, creating a much more immediately distracting animation. We can also speed up this boomerang animation and therefore have this still part of the video at the very bottom, but this really quick animation at the very top, and that kind of contrast immediately draws attention. We'll disable it within this example, and then we'll increase the loop length in frames, thus creating a more smoother transition from one loop to another, which is pretty immersive with things like clouds, skies, and now it kind of looks like a time lapse. We can also change what we want frozen within our image in case we want to check out on how the river looks over here. So we'll just navigate over to where we drew the mask earlier, double clicking on this set mask. When we're in this composition that we created the mask earlier, we're then going to go over to this layer just over here, hit M on our keyboard to bring bring up the mask attributes, and finally what we're going to do is just tick this box inverted, which will flip this selection around, selecting the other part of the video instead of the mask that we created. Now, if we go back to the main dashboard, we can immediately see the effect. What this will do is just freeze the sky instead, leaving only the reflection in the lake moving. A lot more subtle and a little bit surreal, which can really go a long way with decent animations. Of course, we have a particle system within every projection type, even Glacier. So let's just go to settings under particles and then check this checkbox, activate particles. We'll then scroll through the particle type until we find exactly what we want, something that is subtle and not too distracting. We'll then go to the curves within effect controls for these particles, change this channel over here to alpha channel, and then crush down the highlights of this alpha channel in order to make these particles a little bit more subtle within the scene. Right, so once we're happy with that, we'll just double click on the export button down here, and that will bring us into this composition over here. You'll then see a series of numbers here, and what that is a representation of the Photomotion Perfect Cut system, which tells us the exact number of frames we need to cut on in order to achieve the number of loops that we want. Within this example, we want 3 loops, so we'll type in 153 into this area here, which will bring our playhead to the 153 frame point. And before even thinking about rendering out, we'll really make sure to mark the end of our work path, otherwise After Effects will still render out the whole entire composition regardless. Once done, we'll add this to the After Effects render queue by going over to Composition and then clicking on Add to Render Queue, after which the After Effects render engine will become available just down here. We'll want to click on this lossless down here and change the output within the settings window just over here from AVI to QuickTime. We'll hit OK, and then once we're happy with the output location, we'll hit render just over here. However, if we wanted an MP4 straight out the gate from After Effects, that might prove difficult. Although we can use Adobe Media Encoder Queue, and that can be done in 2 ways. First is to bring the project directly into Media Encoder, which will create a duplicate of the project, so not exactly ideal for those who are space conscious. Or we can render it out and then convert said render into an MP4 straight after. Once in Adobe Media Encoder, we'll just check that our format is set to H.264, and of course, we're good to go. Right, so that's of course a basic example on how Glacier works. In case you want to take something a little bit more advanced on, we have a plethora of classes available. As usual, thanks for watching. We hope you find this video useful, and of course, enjoy your photo animation journey.